Amahilu. My name is Shannon McPhail. I work with Skeena Watershed Conservation Coalition, and I want to talk to you today about what it means to have a pipeline through the Skeena-Nass watersheds. This is my home. This is Hazelton. It sits on the unceded territory of the Gitxsan Nation. My house is down there right on the river. And in the back, that's the Wodzinkwah, the Bulkley River that joins with the Skeena. And it's a really important special place. And as I talk about the impacts of the pipeline, I'm going to be talking about a number of different issues, but I want you to remember that our economy in the Skeena is primarily driven by a healthy ecosystem. When all the booms and busts have come, the busts always last longer, and the thing that sustains us is a healthy land. Wild salmon in 2006 were assessed at $110 million each and every year. That number has only increased. That was 20 years ago, almost. That's $1 billion that swims to our homes every 9 years. And that's without putting too much value on the sustenance or the ecosystem services that those fish provide. Because you didn't get to see exactly where the Lisims LNG terminal was proposed to be built, this is Pierce Island. This is the location where they want to build the Lisims terminal. I'm going to tell you about what Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Project is currently permitted to do, what they have submitted to the province and to the regulators and environmental managers about what their project is. What they say their project is very different than what they are currently permitted to do right now. As of right now, the Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Pipeline Project comes from Hudson's Hope and is permitted to go to Lilu Island. It will cross some of the most iconic salmon and steelhead-bearing rivers in all of Canada. This is a little bit of the route coming from Hudson's Hope all the way across. You can see a number of pipeline camps planned. This is a massive pipeline. It's 48 inches. You could drive a small car through it. It will have a pretty significant impact. So 900 kilometers of pipe. Each section of pipe is about little over 12 meters long, so about 40 feet. You can fit 3 sections of that pipe on a truck, which means you have 75,000 truckloads just of pipe. In the Hazeltons, where they want to truck pipe up to their one pipe laydown yard, they're going to need about 30,000 truckloads just of the pipe over 4 single-lane bridges, none of which were built to withstand this kind of industrial heavy activity. And below, the photo below is a camp, a coastal GasLink camp, a pipeline camp, so you can see just how many workers will be coming into communities. The population of the Upper Skeena will more than double. Our emergency room at the Wrench Memorial Hospital is closed often because we don't have staff. The City of Terrace wrote a letter of concern around Lisims because the amount of pressure on their infrastructure that is not supported by LNG it's crumbling. They have to maintain roads, ambulance, paramedics, hospital, RCMP. The amount of addictions have skyrocketed. Just lots of issues come with pipeline camps. When PRGT first came to the region, they had to do a whole bunch of studies in order to complete the requirements of their environmental assessment certificate. One such thing was to do cultural heritage impact assessments. So this affects a lot of people's traditional territories. PRGT hired consultants from all over to come here and tell us what cultural heritage looked like along their pipeline right-of-way. What they did was switch high-value areas that have been registered with the BC ARC branch for decades, and they flipped them and called them low-priority areas. So in most places, they didn't even walk the land to see what was there. In some places, they did, and this is one such instance. We worked with Dr. Chelsea Armstrong of Simon Fraser University, a well-known archaeologist and anthropologist, and she took a bunch of youth. Part of what we do is build capacity, so we hosted at last year's summit, our youth left for one day to go do a field school. And they reviewed one such location on a traditional territory to see how the ARC studies were done and how it compared to what these youth would find. In the top left of this photo is Liera. Liera Bet-Zype. She is the granddaughter of Gwininitxw, who is here today. She was 13 years old. She had just finished grade 8. And in an afternoon, she found exponentially more cultural heritage assets than the entire high-paid team of consultants hired by Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Project. In sort of the middle bottom right, you have the field school area map. In that yellow square, the red lines in there are the archaeological assets or cultural heritage artifacts that were found by the team of high-paid consultants. All the yellow and red in the top photo, that's what our team of kids found in an afternoon. This is what pipeline development looks like on the land. We have an example from Coastal GasLink, owned and operated by TC Energy, the very same company that planned Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Project. This is what a stream crossing looks like on a fish-bearing stream. This is the Clore River. It's hard to tell where the river is, but it comes from here and flows through under this bridge and goes this way. This is called an isolated dam and pump crossing. This is what you do with fish-bearing streams. You block off the river, you dig a big deep hole, but they dug the hole before they blocked it off, and all that erosion and sediment went down and clogged the gills of fish. You put in pumps, the pumps pump the water all the way around, and then you dig a 25-foot trench and you lay the pipe in there, then you cover it all up. It didn't go very well. 2 years in a row, with the snowmelt, it flooded the entire work site. All those hydrocarbons, hydraulic fuels, all pumped into the water. Not to mention all the erosion and sediment. There were no citations given by the BC Energy Regulator. They said they were well within their permit regulations. Here's how many streams in the Skeena they will use that same crossing method for. This is the total isolated dam and pump. There will be 41 stream crossings for the Skeena using that same method. All salmon and steelhead-bearing streams. Open cut means they aren't pumping the water around. They're just digging straight through. In the Nass, they will cross 66 fish-bearing streams, 252 streams in total. When we reviewed all of the streams and their classification for fish-bearing, we noticed that there were many that are fish-bearing that weren't noted as such. So these numbers are actually much higher. On the Susquehanna alone, there will be more than 40 stream crossings on that tiny little salmon-bearing watershed. This is what reclamation looks like. This is after the pipeline has been installed, and this is what it looks like when the work is all done. I'm just going to take you through some headlines, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. When we made complaints about all the different things that were going on, there was so much confusion around who had jurisdiction. When we talked about concerns about fish, we learned that Coastal GasLink had actually self-reported to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans that there were high mortality rates of fish around their work sites. DFO decided not to inspect, and as a matter of fact, for the first 4 years of construction, they didn't inspect a single site. And when asked very specific questions, they referred those questions to Coastal GasLink, who then gave them the answers very quickly, but DFO replied to us and said, we couldn't possibly answer those questions. So the Department of Fisheries and Oceans has been absolutely negligent on this project. And I need you to remember that this project was legally permitted. Everything that you see here was all permitted, despite all the stop work orders, despite all of the complaints, and even the province saying that they had chronic systemic issues with erosion and sediment control and not adhering to their permits. Their fines totaled less than $800,000. One has to wonder why. Another thing that will come to communities are these wonderful compressor stations. That's what keeps the gas pumping through the line. They burn a lot of natural gas. This is where one of the compressor stations will go close to my community, close to the reserve of Gidimt'en, and on the traditional Gitxsan territory of Gwininitxw, and right across the river from Delgamuukw. One of the major amendments that Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Project has received, they've received a number of amendments that has completely changed the project. This isn't the same project that was approved in 2014. What you see at the start is not what happens at the end. Since it was approved, there have been 5 major amendments. Those amendments have brought new marine jetties, new loading docks, new work camps, and more compressor stations, 8 more, actually. There are 8 stations. Each of them were originally permitted to have 2 compressor units. They now have 3. Each unit will consume 33 megawatts of power. That one unit will consume enough power to power 30,000 homes, and they will burn natural gas to do it. There are a lot of pollutants that come out of a compressor station, and when they assess them, they say there aren't too many human receptors in the area. We are those human receptors, our families, our kids, wildlife. They also didn't examine all of these pollutants together. They isolated them and said, if you got sulfur dioxide in this amount, it's okay. But they didn't consider what happens when you have all of these pollutants together. Some of the issues that these pollutants are known to cause, and this comes out of a number of medical studies, both in the US and Canada, these aren't whether or not they will happen. These are the things that absolutely do happen. Each compressor station will need 3 generators, 3 heat plants, and 3 gas-fired compressors, all of them powered by natural gas. Blowdowns are a fun little thing, and these happen at least once a year. It's when they have to depressurize the pipe or off-gas. They can take place anytime. There's no warning. They don't have to consult with people when they're doing it, and I want to give you a little bit of an example of what it's like. Not too awesome. And while we're told that once the pipeline is installed, then it's benign, it's in the ground, things will all be beautiful, they have permits for a 98-person dormitory by that one compressor station. The light pollution will never stop. There will be constant flaring, let alone the industrial lights around that compressor station that will shine 24/7. It will light up our entire valley. You will see the lights clearly from Gidimt'en Reserve, from the Hazeltons, and the off-gassing, putting the pollutants in the air, will be a constant reminder as we see that light burning all the time. Pipelines fail. It's not a matter of whether or not, it's a matter of when. It happens. It's a pretty regular thing. This is from a pipeline explosion 10 years ago, and this is one from just earlier this year.
At a TC Energy pipeline in Yellowhead County, northwest of Edson, it caught fire. The company says a rupture occurred on a segment of the pipeline, a large fireball, you can see it right there, and plenty of smoke filling the sky. Local fire crews, along with Alberta Wildfire, are on scene working to contain that blaze that is still considered out of control. In addition to the dry conditions, the biggest challenge for firefighters here, also getting water to that scene. At a TC Energy pipeline in Yellowhead County, northwest of Edson, it caught fire.
So right now, according to the latest consultation letter sent by PRGT, by TC Energy, we don't know where the pipeline is coming from. We don't know where it's going to end. We don't even know the final pathway of its route in between. They still have a lot of work to do, but they have filed for a construction start to begin in August, next month. It's not just the pipeline. It's the process by which this has happened. It's the example we've seen from Coastal GasLink that even what is legal and permitted, and when we think will be taken care of, that the permits and regulations will be enforced, they are not. We witnessed that with Coastal GasLink. The amount of cost of the fines that they paid in the end was less than 0.01% of the cost of that pipeline. It cost them less to break the law and push forward than it did to delay. That is a strategic decision to support shareholders and not the people who live here. It does not support the fish, it does not support human health, and it certainly doesn't support our economy, because we will be left to clean up this mess for generations to come. But in case you're feeling a little down about this, I just want to remind the people in this room that this region has a history and a track record of whooping some ass. It was the people in this room who stood up against Pacific Northwest LNG that this pipeline is still permitted to go to the metering station on Lilu Island. That project was canceled. The people in this room fought Enbridge, Northern Gateway oil pipeline, fought fish farms on the mouth of the Skeena, fought Shell from fracking in the sacred headwaters, kicked out countless coal mines, kept glyphosates from being sprayed on forests in the Skeena, although it is still used in many other places in the province. The people in this room are the power, and all that TC Energy and corrupt politicians can muster do not stand a chance against the people in this room, because we have our own CIA, and we got Team FAFO. That bottom photo is my family. The guy saying over my dead body with the 30-30 on his shoulder is my father. And I'd like to honor Richard Wright, who pulled so many of us here together. And in Richard's name, we continue this work as Team FAFO, as the Peace and Unity Summit, and as the people who call this place home. So to all of you out there considering the Lisims project, and the purchase of TC Energy's Prince Rupert gas transmission project, I'm asking you to remember that this project impacts all of us, and to come to us and have face-to-face conversations, because the consultation letters don't work. And TC Energy never sells something that will make money. If it was going to make a lot of money, they wouldn't be selling it to you. So I'm asking you to remember your friends and neighbors, and hope that we will support the people who are looking to these projects in order to support their family. If anyone can consider solutions and a way forward, it is this place, because we've done it repeatedly. We are the people who are still here. We are the people who call this place home. And I really wish TC Energy would fuck right off. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Shannon. Neighbor, friend, mentor, inspiration. My name is Kai Nagata. I live in the Kispiox Valley on Delgamuukw territory, and I work at Dogwood with some of the people running the live stream today. And the PRGT pipeline route goes by walking distance from my front door. And so I'm really interested in who these people are that want to build a pipeline through the neighborhood and what makes them tick. So I've taken an interest in researching TC Energy and some of the people behind that project, and I wanted to share that with you today. We're looking at this in the context of intelligence operations, because that's who TC Energy has turned to in order to drive these projects forward, is veterans of the US intelligence community, the security state, and military, who have adapted their skills to the private sector in order to help companies like TC Energy make lots of money. So this month we were treated to some revelations thanks to a leaked tape from an internal session at TC Energy with managers who were being given a presentation on the activities of the geopolitical intelligence team at TC Energy. And some of the members of that team include a former White House staffer, that's Ed Burrier, top right, top left. Donald Trump's former Homeland Security advisor, that's Julia Neshewat, top right. Mike Evanoff, the former head of security for the entire State Department and all of the US embassies and bases overseas, that's Mike Evanoff, bottom left. And Liam Iliff, who was one of the presenters who's on TC Energy's lobbying team in Victoria, BC, and he's a former BC NDP chief of staff who walked over to TC Energy and claims to have achieved extraordinary results lobbying his former colleagues, including through methods which we believe are illegal in BC, in order to gain influence over government decisions. I want to drill down and focus on two of the people specifically, and the first one is Mike Evanoff. I don't know if you remember the Iraq War, Donald Rumsfeld, George Bush, Dick Cheney, and Condoleezza Rice. Mike Evanoff was the bodyguard and head of security to Condoleezza Rice, the Secretary of State for the US during their war on Iraq. He led a team of 75 special agents whose job was to advance US foreign policy during the War on Terror through the State Department, and was later appointed the Assistant Secretary of State in charge of all diplomatic security by President Donald Trump. He is now the Director of National Security Policy, Geopolitical Intelligence, and Research at TC Energy. So he has taken that skill set and those relationships and walked over to the pipeline company that we're talking about today. Julia Neshewat, his fellow executive at TC Energy, was a military intelligence officer during the War on Terror. She joined the office of the Director of National Intelligence and was later appointed Donald Trump's Homeland Security Advisor. And she is the Vice President of Policy and Insights at TC Energy. And these are the people coaching the lobbyists and the managers at the pipeline company. And so I have to ask myself, why? Why would you hire US intelligence agents at a Canadian pipeline company? What is the training, the relationships, and the mindset that they bring in order to help TC Energy achieve its corporate goals? And we don't have to dig very far to answer those questions. In fact, the intelligence community in the United States has open-sourced a lot of their training, and you can download this manual, Intelligence Operations, from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that gives us insight into the common training and doctrine that all of these American intelligence agents are steeped in. There are 5 key concepts that I want to talk about that I think are relevant to the private sector intelligence operations of TC Energy. And those are understanding the operational environment, a concept called federated reachback, the idea of battle rhythm, red cells, and a culture of right for release. And I'll just touch briefly on each of these concepts. This is one of the directives in the intelligence operations focus paper, and they encourage all intelligence agents and people running intelligence operations to understand the operational environment, to see risks and opportunities. And I think we can see a really good example in the story of Lilu Island of how Petronas, a company from Malaysia, had a complete intelligence fail in terms of understanding the local environment and the community, specifically around Flora Bank. This is a photo of little smolts on Flora Bank, and this was something that flew completely under the radar of Petronas, and it cost them a huge project that could have made them a lot of money. TC Energy has corrected that mistake. They have gained a deeper understanding of our geography and our communities in the last 10 years, and they are applying that in order to create a path forward for PRGT pipeline, which is called the Prince Rupert pipeline, but now would go nowhere near Prince Rupert, instead going to this Lisims terminal on Pierce Island. They encourage officers to augment organic capacity with federated reachback. And essentially that means bringing in the relationships that they already hold within agencies that have more reach than a private company. And so we are looking at the tip of the iceberg. We are seeing TC Energy, a pipeline company that's traded on the stock exchange and has a building in Calgary and a building in Houston, but the relationships that those officers bring allow them to coordinate with the State Department, CSIS, and the CIA. That's federated reachback. That's what gives you depth in analysis and operations, is the relationships with national intelligence agencies. And you can see TC Energy pushing hard to change federal legislation in Canada in order to allow our spy agency to directly share classified intelligence with private companies in order to advance their commercial goals. They also talk about this idea of battle rhythm. This photo is a joke. I don't know what battle rhythm looks like in the TC Energy offices, but they're really into it. And it's a reminder that all of these concepts come out of warfare, and all of these people come out of a long career prosecuting US interests overseas through violence. And when they talk about how to time your operations for maximum impact, they refer back to this concept of battle rhythm. One of their key tactics: employ red cells to understand adversary decision calculus. That means putting people on payroll who can help you get inside the decision-making process of the people that you're trying to defeat. I won't elaborate on that too much further, but understand that this is a key strategy of the oil and gas industry, and they have unlimited funds with which to gain that intelligence. Finally, they encourage everybody to inculcate a culture of right for release. And within the intelligence community, there's a lot of focus on sharing best practices, on stories from operations that went well. And I believe that's what got TC Energy in so much trouble this month, because they held a lunch and learn on Zoom with all of these former State Department agents and intelligence officers and lobbyists bragging about breaking the law in British Columbia in order to influence the decisions of our regulators and politicians. And somebody within the TC Tower, they call it protecting the TC Tower. We're on the battlefield every day to protect the TC Tower. Somebody in that tower had a little twinge of conscience and thought, this is weird. The public needs to know about this. And thanks to that individual, we now have tapes and transcripts of what they talk about internally. I will remind you that TC Energy is also in a relationship with KKR. And KKR is a private equity firm on Wall Street, and their head of intelligence is David Petraeus. Petraeus was the top US general in Iraq and Afghanistan, and later served as the director of the CIA, and his specialty is counterinsurgency warfare. He wrote the manual for the US military on counterinsurgency warfare. And in 2019, TC Energy sold a 65% stake in Coastal GasLink to KKR using pension funds from teachers and public employees in Alberta. KKR is the major force behind the Coastal GasLink pipeline and the strategy that we have seen unfold on Wet'suwet'en territory over the last number of years. And they're also partnered with Pembina Pipeline Corporation, which of course has assets here and just made a final investment decision on another LNG terminal just south of us. I just want to play you a little video of General David Petraeus wearing his KKR vest, talking about their approach to the companies that they buy and what value it is that KKR brings.
Once we've made investments, we help the companies that we own as they run into problems, and it's surprising how much actually you can help them with just sheer determination, boots on the ground, presence, and so forth, and working with host nation leaders when there are these issues that have to be resolved. Once we've made investments, we help the companies.
He says it's surprising, actually, how much you can help them with just sheer determination, boots on the ground, presence, and working with host nation leaders. That's a term from the U.S. wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but he can't help himself. He still loves talking like a general. And so you have to ask, who does he mean by host nation leaders? Are our host nation leaders aware of who or what they are hosting? I think there's a lot of questions that have come up just in the last few weeks around the relationship between TC Energy, its lobbyists, its geopolitical intelligence team, and our host nation leaders. And we need to get a better understanding of how deep the integration is between this company and the BC government. Because if you listen to the TC Energy executives, they have our politicians wrapped around their little fingers. They say jump, and our politicians say how high. That's what they say inside the TC Tower. Here's what we do know. TC Energy went massively over budget on the Coastal GasLink pipeline. It was more than double what they planned to spend, and their stock price has been in free fall as they try to sell assets all over North America. We know that they have not moved forward on the PRGT pipeline in over 10 years, and yet suddenly there's this huge rush to sell it to the Nisga'a Lisims government. Has TC Energy been honest with the prospective buyers about the risks that come with building this size of pipeline through northern BC? Have they been honest about the regulatory hurdles and the legal hurdles that may lie in front of the project just over the next few months? The bottom line for people in this region is, do we trust TC Energy to have the best interest of our communities at heart? Or are they doing what oil and gas companies do, which is just try to make more money? What are their motivations? Looking more deeply at the relationship between TC Energy and our political leadership, I think is a vital question that all of us need to turn our minds to in the coming weeks and months. And we are already seeing disturbing signs that those lobbyists are not entirely blowing smoke, that they have a level of influence over our democratically elected leaders that goes far beyond what the average person might realize. And to take a look at some of those warning signs, I wanted to bring up Andhra, a lawyer from Ecojustice, who's going to walk us through what is happening right now inside the BC government. Thank you.
Thanks, Kai and Shannon. And I'm really going to follow up here on an example of what we're seeing about how can a pipeline that was approved in 2014 that is going to what looked like a dead project because of the work of so many people here suddenly kind of come back to life, and to borrow Shannon's phrase, be this zombie pipeline that seems to have reawakened, and suddenly construction is supposed to be starting in August, which we found out in June. And so how how kind of that seems to be happening is by keeping a lot of stakeholders in the dark, by trying to make it as smooth as possible for TC Energy to be able to begin construction, and ignoring some kind of very big changes in the project, key permit conditions about what was supposed to happen before construction started. And that seems to be happening with the support of the BC Environmental Assessment Office and the BC Energy Regulator. So the first example is, this is similar to the map that Shannon showed of the BC, or the PRGT pipeline. But what you can see with this, the red line on the left side of the map, is the change to the pipeline. So it's no longer going south to Lilu Island. It is now going north to Pierce Island. However, and it's going under the water, it's going very close to the route that the boat yesterday would have gone through. And yet, right now, when we got notice publicly of construction being supposed to start in August, this part of the pipeline is not approved at all. There is no amendment application from TC Energy to change the route. The route has not been approved. There has been no public consultation about that route. And why this is important is, and why this is happening, is because PRGT has an environmental assessment certificate from the BC government from 2014. And they got an extension to that certificate in 2019 for 5 years. And so that permit and that certificate expires in November 2024, unless TC Energy can substantially start the project. And that means substantially starting construction on the project. And the reason we have those deadlines to environmental assessment certificates is because a lot changes in 10 years. We've seen over the last couple of days, Shannon talked about it, there's climate impacts to rivers, there's already other impacts to salmon, there's new industrial projects that are approved in 10 years. We learn new information over 10 years about the impacts of these projects, whether it's witnessing the impacts of Coastal GasLink or seeing the impacts of wildfires. And so we're not supposed to be approving projects 10 years ago based on old information, and then not updating that. And so that's why these certificates are supposed to end, and why companies are supposed to go back to communities and reassess those impacts. But instead of doing that, we're seeing TC Energy just really scramble to keep this license, this certificate alive, and to not have to provide that updated information. And so in addition to them not amending the certificate to actually go to the project that they're planning to make this pipeline go to, they're also doing things with the permit that actually allows them to start construction. So for the construction of pipelines, the BC Energy Regulator provides permits to the companies and each of these permits are on sections of the pipeline. So as we know from June, is they're planning to start construction in what's called Section 5 of the pipeline. And confusingly, they actually said Section 5B, which that section is not a section that anyone knows about. No one has a map publicly of what Section 5B is. We just know that they are starting construction on Nisga'a lands somewhere. And Section 5 of the pipeline, as we publicly know it, runs from Nisga'a lands in the west through to the Kispiox Valley, through Git'en and Gitxsan territories. And no one has really been consulted about what's happening about the start of construction and where actually that construction is happening. And what we know has happened in order to try and get this pipeline construction started is that back in April, the BC Energy Regulator amended the pipeline, or amended the permit and split it so that construction could start in one section and that the people living in the other part of Section 5, so the Kispiox Valley, kind of outside of Nisga'a lands, would not be consulted or would not get information really about how construction was starting. And one condition of that permit that was amended in 2022 was the promise of a cumulative effects assessment for the whole project. And the reason that that's really key is because, again, as I said, this project was permitted 10 years ago. And so this addition of the BC Energy Regulator saying before construction starts, we're going to require a cumulative effects assessment that will be done in consultation with all the nations affected by the project, was really critical to understanding how conditions have changed in the last 10 years, what other projects have been approved that might affect the impacts of building this pipeline. And yet what we've seen is, despite that amendment, and because of these kind of secret changes that have happened since April, that cumulative effects assessment is not actually happened. It's not happened for the whole project, and it means that construction is planned to start in August without that assessment happening, and without anyone who's affected on any of these other sections of the pipeline really being informed about what even the BC Energy Regulator is doing before construction starts. And so I think that the theme really of what TC Energy is doing, what the BC regulators are doing, is keeping people in the dark. And I think I've at least witnessed, I'm from Vancouver, I work on unceded Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh lands, but coming up here this weekend, really have witnessed the power of people sharing information, working together to push against these projects. And what we're seeing the regulators in TC Energy currently doing is, I think, knowing that, not provide information to people so that people don't all have the same information, and we can't share what's happening, what we know each of the regulators are doing, and kind of coordinate in that way. And so the way we really push against this is to start talking, is to start sharing the information we can find, and all using our different knowledge, our kind of insight into different regulators to try and find out what's going on and provide and share that information so that we can coordinate a way to push back against really the stretching of these permits and the attempt to kind of to reawaken this zombie pipeline. Yeah, that's it for me. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Shannon, Andhra, and Kai for those words. Just listening to them speak quite often makes me question a lot of what's going on today and the secrecy around pipelines. Like, if it was so good for us, as they say, you know, it's going to reduce greenhouse gases, on and on and on, the greenwashing that happens, that are complete lies. If you research it, a lot of the claims that they have are outright lies. With the project that's going ahead in Kitimat, if you think about it, they could ship every watt of power from Site C, which isn't full yet, by the way. They don't have enough water. They could ship every watt of power to Kitimat, and they still wouldn't have enough power for liquefaction. So you think about that, and who's paying for that? The taxpayers. We are. Shannon mentioned stop work orders. It sounds great. It sounds like, oh my God, they have to stop work, right? And work never stops. It's around the clock. It's 24/7. A stop work order just means that they've made a major mistake and they need to go back and fix it. It was also mentioned about how in the past 10 years the laws have changed, the rules have changed, the government and industry keep moving the goalposts. The permit was good for 5 years. You're allowed one extension, so now it's 10 years. So what they should do is go back to the drawing board and reevaluate this project, because in the last 10 years we've witnessed droughts, wildfires, flooding, communities being burnt down, heat waves. The list goes on and on and on. And one thing I learned about a month ago, and it just blew my mind away when I heard about it, is that when Canada produces LNG, if it's not burnt in Canada, they don't record it. So anything that's shipped overseas to wherever it's going, Asia, wherever, Canada doesn't record it as part of their emissions. And so it's just these little things like that they're so secretive about that really make me think and wonder. I want to pose a question, and I've asked this question on social media a couple of times, and I've never got a response. I'm asking this question to the Nisga'a people. If this company is so willing to sell this project to you, and their only mission is to get profits, that's what they do. If they're so willing to sell it to you, you got to question that. Why are they so willing to sell it to you? Because it's a big risk. That's why. It's a huge risk. LNG is on its way out. And so they're all happy to get rid of it. Dump it on the indigenous people. Absolutely. And I've been contemplating over the last couple of days if I wanted to make this next statement, but again, to the Nisga'a people, I've been up in their territory, beautiful territory, the lava beds, amazing. And they ask you to walk softly on our land. Our people are buried under that lava. They don't even want you to take a rock, and I've never done it. I've never taken a rock, a lava rock, because it's sacred territory. And so I asked the Nisga'a people, if that territory is so sacred, why are you willing to put a pipeline over your sacred territory where your people are buried? Why is that okay? So, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I'll hand it off to Drew and Grace again.
Thank you. Hatmia. I think Kirby summarized what these three amazing panelists spoke about, and just to add on to that, one thing that Shannon said that really stuck with me was it's cheaper for them to break the law than to follow their own procedures. And I think that statement right there summarizes really beautifully why would we ever sign a contract with them. And with that being said, we would like to hear some responses from some hereditary leadership in the House, and I'm going to pass it off to Drew.
We'd like to call up Dene Was, Simoyget Gwininitxw, and Simoyget Delgamuukw. Just a friendly reminder to be mindful of time so everyone has a chance to speak. Misai.
Simgigat, Sedamanach, and Anitskabuilsuk. Hasagaida man mal a dawg Lawson, a dawg so which would al Dogwood. Yalgi nakladat maltid loam, dem lechkesum wisim dita, adix wheat utum lalt. Dem which so which will man adix lochs, demit up down, will up down lochs. I naknedit a blachnillit headed, I given, gay adix wheat utum lalt, pipeline so what a lamshua. I hester geradet, achtem de guidit a leegoi, dem plochtit la bleegoi, schahet wit rochtit, I given gams wildit. I am telling you the history that was handed down by the elders, that one day a big black snake would come up where the sun comes up, and it would go down where the sun goes down. It would have no mercy on anyone. It would swallow and devour everything in its path. We've seen that happen in the Wet'suwet'en territory, and now it's going to happen in the Nisga'a territory. All of us will be affected, each and every single one of us. It doesn't matter whether we're Alawguget or whether we're Amshiwa. It's going to impact all of us. So I'm begging you all to please wake up and make the right decision. Our ancestors said, be careful. It's not you that you will impact, it's those that have not yet been born. So I'm asking you all to think of all those great-great-grandchildren not yet born. Also think of the animals that are going to be destroyed. All that which lives in the sea will be destroyed. So please, please wake up and let's do the right thing for those that are yet not born. Amiyatni Lawson. Thank you.
As I said a couple of days ago when I briefly spoke, my concern is the animals and especially the water. Where I come from, I've been living up in the headwaters in Nass for over 50 years now. I've noticed the change. We have no more creeks up there. 90% of the creeks are dead. There's no more beaver dams up there. They're all gone. Some of the mountains are barren. There's no more mountain goats, no more groundhogs, no more water. 2003, I took a helicopter from Terrace to Yukon border. 95% of the glaciers were already gone. 95%. That is 25 years ago, 23 years ago. And it's really important, like when I spoke, I talked about fracking. Same thing's going on in our northern mines, BC. They're filling up our lakes with tailings, filling up our mine tunnels with tailings. And once that water is contaminated, it's useless. You can't refine it anymore. Same as the tar sands. I've been up there 3 times. Millions and millions and millions of gallons daily contaminated. We went up there, Gerald Amos, myself. We're invited to go take a look. We met with them. I was there with CBC Canada. 6 people died in January. And we wanted to know why. The government wanted to know why. And what the elders were doing was all the fish, the moose, were contaminated from the water. The insides of the moose were yellow. They had to go to Fort Nelson to get a healthy moose. They're cutting the sores out of the fish so they could eat it. That's what they're dying from. But it's really sad to see what's going on. Like I said a couple of days ago, we have cougars, wolves, black bears, grizzlies, eagles eating out of our gerbils in our communities. There's no more fish. There's no more creeks. And that's going to be affected by this pipeline. Pipeline got another fine last week, $50,000 fine. That's not even pennies in pipeline money. But the right decision has to be made by the people, and I've got a letter here from the province, and it states that another thing I'd like to bring up while I'm here is you guys have to make use of the Delgamuukw court decision. All the answers are there. 26 years ago. Very few people are using it in Canada, but New Zealand, Australia, other countries are using it. And this is why they're using it. I got a letter from the province. Thank you for notifying the province of the autonomy of your Lachip, that's territory. The province understands the Gitxsan Simoyget are the rightful title holders and decision makers of their Lachip, and that no other group or entity speak on their behalf. As a result, all provincial consultation occurs directly with Simoyget on proposed activities and initiatives in their respective Lachip. This came from the province, right from Parliament buildings. They need your consent. If you don't have your consent, that's a no-go. Thank you.
Denize Jakaze Skaise. Kajin Hunzu Dits Sane Tesla. Dia Dan Magayetik. Njanawa Deni Autotine Deal Pipeline Oya Hainikas. Dian Yetsaya Islay. Tawe Yetsaya Islay. Ay, Bagani Honley. Tia who's it here? Gani Sahau Ditsne, who this year, Jana, Deno Harelis. Ewe, Bagani Honley. Good day, everybody. I'm Was, the speaker for Kasia people, Gidimt'en. There's one of 3 houses in Gidimt'en as a Wet'suwet'en nation. In my language, I said and greeted the hereditary chiefs, the male chiefs, the female chiefs, and the children of the hereditary chiefs. I'd like to thank the owners of this land that we stand on. Before I start, I'm very grateful for the safe passage and that I am here safely. You know, the pipeline and all of the issues, mining, and all the developments that are happening. There's one thing that's for sure, and it's a clear message from the hereditary chiefs of Wet'suwet'en. If you believe in the Chief and Council, if you believe in the Indian Act, if you believe on the reservation that you live on, you are doomed. You are wrong. That is a clear message. And if you believe that the government is telling you that this is the way to do it, this is the agreement and this is the money you will receive, you are wrong, you are doomed. You know, there's one meme that I've seen from Africa. And this gentleman was talking, and it gave me a clear message. The gentleman was saying this: so you're telling me that you're going to be paying me a wage to take my own minerals, my own gold, my own diamonds, my own resources to give to you. So you're telling me that I will have a job to give all of my resources to you. There's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with the picture here. And we here in our own land get a paid position or a paid wage to take out our own resources and give it to someone. There's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that picture. So in our teachings, the way we were brought up, do not be afraid to say that this is your land. Do not be afraid of who you are and say who you are. Wet'suwet'en, Do not be afraid to walk down the street and say, I am Wet'suwet'en. I am from this nation, and this is my land. Do not be afraid to say that. Those are the teachings that we were grown up with. The training that we had, the training that we were given by my father, by my uncles and the other men, the traditional men. We had campfires. We had talks about all this that was going to happen. Be prepared. Say this message to those that need it. The message to the chief and council. They are our people too. Sit down with them, talk with them, and tell them you're from a house. You're from a clan. You are Wet'suwet'en. You are this nation. You must sit down and talk and look at this picture as one. Those are the messages that we carry. And we have to be strong, and we have to be strong in delivering that message. And the one message that they really was put into my brain and was put into my soul and heart is do not be afraid. Stand up. That was the message that was brought into me, that was bred right into me. And this morning, I was going to leave, but I had a feeling I had to bring this message. There's a reason why I'm here. There's a reason why this happens. And there's a reason why this warriorship needs to be brought back up. There's a reason why this fight needs to be brought back up. And there's a reason why we have to stand up for the little one. And I'm going to close this by saying this. For all of us that are in this room, for all of them that are listening out there, would you allow a little baby to be out in the winter, no clothing, no food, and place that little baby out in the cold and walk away? I don't think so. This is the same scenario. This is the same scenario. We're leaving our kids out in the cold with no clothing, no future, no promises of clean water. And is it fair to that little baby? That's the strong message that I bring to you. Awatja Masai.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'd like to echo what the past Simoyget said here, Simoyget. Yesterday we went on a little venture in our homelands here, and I was watching everyone on the ferry yesterday, the excitement and all the laughing and all the talking that was going on with nature. You know, as a fisherman and being out on the land a lot of the time, and you see firsthand yesterday the excitement, people not seeing a humpback whale or a grizzly bear on the beach and things like that, you know, I don't take that for granted, but when somebody from across Canada or in Germany or wherever, when you see those kind of things like that, and it's still plentiful on the north coast, you're like, you know, waking up where I wake up in the morning and seeing what I see, you know, I could have lived anywhere when I was growing up being a fisherman. But what I take, and I never have taken it for granted, is the surroundings I was given. I think I am really blessed to be in the position where I'm at. I had a good cry over here a couple of days ago when I seen my son's picture posted up there. That boy had a vision much bigger than mine. about the environment and his homeland. He was the one that dragged me down to Lilo Island in August there. After my boy died, I hated life. I hated Lilo Island. I hated everything that it stood for because of what happened to him. He gave everything and then some for what happened. Over the years on Lilo Island and the after effect, people must know, Kenny and I, over here at Gwishawaal, we were sued by the Port of Prince Rupert in a civil matter. And it was about what, Kenny, 2 years? 2 years in court and a lot of money. And I knew this lawyer that represented us, and after he told me and Kenny that he would work out a deal with us, and anyway, after the second year in court, the two lawyers for the port and for myself and Kenny, they came out with the conclusion that if Kenny and I don't step on the land that we occupied, then they will let the civil matter go. And I laughed. Told the lawyer, I said, I could have done this myself, I said, and spending all this money. We went to court, Supreme Court, I believe it was 2017, and I've never been into anything so vicious in my life as my band council, the provincial, federal, Patronus, slandering our names, dragging my family through the mud. And for what? For money. All for money. You know, I'm not an educated person, and I'm sitting in a room full of lawyers and high-profile cabinet ministers, and you're begging them in Ottawa not to give them the green light on destroying the Skeena River. And that's what we were doing. We were begging. You go back into the documents, you go back into the history of your own chiefs, your own people, of what they were doing back in the day when they were fighting not to be put on the reserve. When I was out there yesterday, every day when I'm out in the water or anywhere on the land, I thank the government for putting me on that land. The most beautiful land I've ever come across, the richest land I've ever come across in my life. There's a lawyer in our village. She's from Vancouver Island. She's married to one of our guys there. And she can't get over the bounty in our land and what we're able to take. She said where she lives, there's absolutely nothing left. When they go out digging a clam, they're limited to what they can get. They can't shoot. They can't do anything. And that I don't take for granted, but I do protect what I have. I do protect my beaches. I do protect my mountains. I do protect my water. And I was never in this position before until my boy opened up my eyes. When I see people on my beaches on the far-off islands out there, those are private beaches. I go and I tell them, I'll give you a day and you guys have to leave. If not, we'll burn down your tents. And that's just how we do it. I do it. I try to tell my fellow men, you know, when you see things going on in the territory, you tell them where you are, whose property this is. This thing that it's not going to go away with oil and gas. Fracking, you know, we had another lawyer come down to Terrace there, and he was showing us the destruction up in his homeland. Everything's poison up there. You know, and that's not too far from us. It's coming our way. I'm not against development. I'm not against, you know, people making a living. But I am against destruction. You know, we've gone through assimilation through so many different patterns of our life. You know, I am a product of residential school. I am a product of Indian day school. I am a product of alcoholism. I am that person, though. I have survived. We bring up our children to the best of our ability to show them what is right and wrong. And we talk about the land to them. My grandchildren always tell me, you know, they want to know what a chief does. They ask me, "Are you a chief, Papa?" I don't answer. I just nod my head, tell them what's right, you know, what we do. We went by the Kw'alaams River yesterday, and I don't know if all the eyes, my eyes are pretty keen when it comes to fish jumping. The Kw'alaams River is a sockeye-bearing river, and the sockeye are starting to peak in that river, and all along that shore yesterday, sockeye were abound. I was in awe yesterday. I was telling Kenny, my brother over there, I want to go set my net close to that river, but we're not allowed to go in that area. Again, it's protected. It's been protected for a long time. And again, you know, I'm not against anything, you know. Even in my lifetime, at one point, I wanted to see the commercial sector shut down. But if I was going to shut down my sector for my right to live, my right for an economic living, then the rest of society has to be shut down. The sport industry has to be shut down. If we're going to be sitting down watching people making a living, then we have to be part of that. And so does the rest of society. The people in my village have been taking a lot from the Department of Fisheries and the federal and provincial governments over the decades here on cutbacks and how we live. My village once hosted 137 boats in a small, tiny village. Now we got down to 19 boats. And all these men that are in these boats are all of age. There is no young men behind us. There's no young women behind us. I always go back to the letters that our great-great-grandfather wrote to the Dominion of Canada, you know, when he was asking for the land that he wanted to see. And they already had it. They already had it in their mind 150 years ago what they were going to do to us. They were going to kill us all. One way or another, they were going to do it, they thought, legally. But it turned out to be a disaster. You know, I could go on and talk about contact. I could go on about what they did to us in our village when the Hudson's Bay Company came to our village. There was nothing good that came out of it. Nothing. I was on my beach one morning a few years ago, and it was snowing heavy, and I just wanted to get out of my house and walk. I live right on an island where we have a big beach there, and this old man was standing over on the bank. And I was quite a ways from him, and I knew he wanted to say something to me. So I walked up to him, and I said to him, "What happened to us?" And he just stared at me with a blank look, and he just said to me, "We should have killed them all." And I said, "What's that?" "We should have killed them all," he said. And I thought how heavy that was, you know, that phrase coming out of his mouth. And my thoughts went with him that day, you know, and I knew this man all my life growing up in the village. He was my neighbor. But my thoughts, you know, are for our kids here today. Like they have said, it's a future that we have to look after. It's not about us, never about us. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Simoyget, Gidimt'en, Gitxsan, Gwishawaal, Louie Gora no Lisims. Gwishawaal Dwyer, Wabam Gwishawaal, Gitwilgyoots, Lachkibu. I listened to these gentlemen, Simoyget Was, is it? Simoyget Was, Simoyget Yahaan, the words they say, and I'd like to echo all what they say too, but they've already said it, and it's words of great importance. You know, we only have so much now with the world that's being destroyed. How much more time this planet has, I don't know. How much more can it take? I don't know. And I said years ago when I was interviewed on Lilo Island that I want to be able to show my grandchildren what a salmon looks like, not show them a picture of what it looks like. We're in scary times, very scary times. Going back to, I'll touch up a little bit on Lilu and how bad that could have been. It would have been really bad for us at the mouth of the river, and it would have been bad all the way up the river to the headwaters if this thing was built. Donnie's son once said to us, or him and his partner Matt there, that we have to cut the head of the snake off in order to stop this. And that was in the beginning when they said that, and it was a battle. People came from around the globe to help out here. He started out with a little makeshift tent. People were walking in mud with no shoes on out there. When I first saw that, I was just amazed. I could not believe what I was seeing. But as it went on, the band stepped in and helped us to put a building there, and people brought tents. There were just so many people that cared about what was happening. There were a few funders that put some money forward to help us with the cause. There's a Steelhead Society, I believe. They donated a boat, a jet boat, to help us with this. And the battles got really intense. They got really intense. They got scary intense. We had people come out there and threaten people's lives. You know, and that's how I got started. I was fishing over in Haida Gwaii, and I got a phone call about what was going on, and my wife was on the island, so I just told my cousin, pull the gear, let's go back and deal with this. So we pulled the gear, came back, and tried to deal with it as best we could, and then when I was about to leave, Yahaan here says, where are you going? I'm going back fishing. I got to make a living. And he said, well, this is your island. You got to stay and fight for this. I had just feasted my name about 6 months before this all happened. I had no idea I was going to be doing what I had to do. But the chief spoke. I responded and got into it heavy duty along with all the other people. I won't go into names of everybody that was there, but the people that were there really, really cared for what was going to happen, if it did happen, how bad it was going to be. So we fought it tooth and nail. And I got to say that the people we were fighting against had so many lies. I mean, it was just incredible, the stuff that they were making up about us. And they were stopping at nothing to make sure this goes through. So I look at it today and I see that, yeah, we did manage to stop it. It was with great effort on everybody's part that took part in it. And I'm thankful that everybody that did show up, they showed up at the right time, and so many, like Murray Smith there, I mean, he played a big part. He was always a voice. He stood with us. He stood with me and Yahaan. There were so many people. It scares me to think that it's going on even today. It's been kept really quiet, but rumor has it that they are looking at Lilu again, as to whether they're going to put part of that pipeline on there again or whether it's going to be storage for containers. But the word on the street is that they are looking at it. So we're not only dealing with Pierce Island, you know, that's on our territory, and they're going to build there anyway. We were told in the beginning it's not going to happen. Well, they're pushing forward, and to me it looks like it's going to happen. So there will be another battle, there will be another war, and we have to be ready. Spears and shields have to come out again, and just we have to do our part. I listened to Simoyget Wass's words there about protecting for the future. I've had a good life throughout my years. I've been like everybody else, had ups and downs. And so now it's our turn to look out for the children, for the young people. And I think it's imperative we stop what's going on up in the Nass River and just fight for our future generations, fight for the fish. If something goes wrong up there, then the Nass River fish are in trouble. Not only just the fish, but everything that lives in those waters. So yeah, I'm ready. I know Yahaan's ready. That's not within our territorial boundaries house-wise and tribe-wise, but if we get called on, I'm pretty sure we're going to react. We've done it once, we'll do it again. I think it can be stopped. We just have to all apply. We all have to be as one, all nations. Fight this thing and stop it. Thank you.
I want to know who will stand with us to stop this pipeline. If you will, stand up, clap your hands, stamp your feet, drum your drums. Who will stop this pipeline?
I would like to call up Louie Wagner from Metlakatla, Alaska, to come and say a few words. I know Louie's traveled a long way to be with us today. They are seeing the same, they're experiencing the same struggles that we are in terms of low fish returns. Louie Wagner.
Thank you, Kirby. My name's Louie Wagner Jr. from Metlakatla, Alaska. And my grandfathers are from Hartley Bay when they moved to Ned Island in built Metlakatla, Alaska. And I think it was like 1867. So I'm here with the Southeast Alaska Indigenous Transboundary Commission. We've been traveling all over, meeting with a lot of First Nations throughout the country. And the Unique River has been our lifeline. It produces the salmon, the ooligan, the moose, and there's two mines going on it right now, the Bruce Jack and the KSM, and the Eski Creek mine is really close to getting their permit to develop, be the second to largest mine in the world. And it's going to destroy our river. We won't have our ooligan anymore or our salmon. And also the Skeena up at Wrangell and Taku up in Juneau. And so we just been trying to get the word out and meet with everybody that we'd like to have a seat at the table with the Canadian government before they issue the permits for the mine. And we thought we were getting fairly close, but now we're not. And I guess the mining people says, well, if we destroy the salmon, we'll put in a hatchery. Hatchery's not the answer. I do not like them. We have it on a Ned Island, and it's destroyed two of our major streams. And I won't eat that fish. It's, they feed it pellets. It's not safe and healthy. It don't taste like our wild salmon. So we catch our own wild salmon. And we're just really hoping to eventually get a seat at the table so we can voice our concerns. My family, for over 10,000 years, have been the caretakers of the unique river. We have a red sun painted on the rock wall down below mean low water with the sun rays coming off of it, and it's estimated to be over 10,000 years old. What they used for paint, I don't know, but you couldn't get it from the hardware store. It wouldn't last. And what is it, about 20 miles upriver, we have another one that our ancestors painted on the rock wall high up on the bluff, marking it as our river. And no one was allowed to go in there and just go and fish back in the day. They had to get permission from my family. See, I'm Ts'msyen and Tlingit. I'm Tekwadi from the Sanyuquan and a brown bear. And it's just, we used to wonder where the debris was coming down the river back in the mid-90s when they started that Brucejack mine, and nobody knew where it was coming from. Asked the Fish and Game, well, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, they knew, but they wouldn't tell us that there was that mine going up there. They put all their tailings into a lake up there, and then when it started running over, our hooligans started to disappear. They were going to different rivers. And when we finally learned about the mine, must have been late 90s, I guess. And then that Brent Murphy in that group who are on the NAS and want to put the mine on the Unique came to Gitxsan, held a meeting, and they showed what they've done so far. And where they drilled, it was just red coming out of their exploration holes. And he was trying to tell us, oh, that's natural, we'll make it better. I said, I've been up there for 62 years now, and there's no way you can make it better. The glaciers that were up there was blue water coming out of the rivers. And now, last spring when we went up to get Ooligan, the water was just black. It was dark. All my years, I'd never seen it like that. It was hard. We had a hard time to find the fish, but you know how to look, you can find them. And we're really hoping that we can get that seat at the table so we can voice our concern. I mean, the water quality would be destroyed. It's a small, shallow river, but it produces a lot of fish for all of us. So, all we can do is keep trying and getting the word out really good. We've had a reporter from Vancouver put a good article in the paper making people more aware of our situation, what's happening with these mines. They're destroying the earth. And we had another reporter, he go up the river with us, along with my colleague over here, Sonia, this spring, and when we got the hooligans, and he tried to, wants to put his article out in the paper, and I guess the Daily News and the other, like Anchorage and them, they won't pick it up and put it in the paper. They don't want the people to know that there's fish up there and a lot of hooligans for a long time. So all we can do is keep trying. Thank you, Kirby.